The treasures of the Dhamma, the treasures of the world last only as long as our breathing. As soon as we die, they go to somebody else. The king of death keeps changing our clothes, our eyes, our hair, our skin, etc., as a way of forewarning us that we're going to be evacuated to another country. If we don't get our provisions ready, we're going to be in trouble when the evacuation order comes. This body that we've borrowed from the world, the original owners keep coming to take it back bit by bit without our realizing it. For example, the hair on our head, they take it back 1 or 2 strands at a time, turning it gray. Our eyes they take back 1 at a time, making them blurry. Our ears they take back bit by bit as our hearing starts to go. Our teeth they take back 1 by 1. A tooth will start feeling loose, then it stops for a while, and then it starts growing loose again. Eventually, it whispers to the dentist to take all the teeth out. The original owners also cut away our flesh bit by bit as our muscles atrophy and our skin gets loose and wrinkled. Our spine, they keep coming to pull forward until it's so bent that we can't straighten up. Some people end up having to crawl or walk with a cane, stumbling and swaying, falling down and picking themselves back up, a sorry sight to see. Ultimately, the owners come and call for the whole thing back, in what we call death. If you look carefully at the body, you'll see that what you have here is the 4 states of deprivation. Nothing wonderful at all. The first state of deprivation is the animal kingdom. All the worms and germs that live in our stomach and intestines, in our blood vessels and in our pores. As long as there's food for these things to eat in there, they're always going to be with us, multiplying like crazy, making us ill. On the outside of the body, there are fleas and lice. They like staying with whoever doesn't keep himself clean, making his skin red and sore. As for the animals living in the blood vessels and pores, they give us rashes and infections. The second state of deprivation is the kingdom of hungry ghost, i.e. the properties of earth, water, fire, and wind in the body. First they feel too cold, then too warm, then they feel ill. Then they want to eat this or that. We have to keep pandering to them, running around to find things for them to eat with no chance to stop and rest. And they never have enough, like the hungry ghosts who starve after they die, with no one to feed them. These properties keep pestering us, and no matter what you do, you can never please them. First the food is too hot, so you have to put ice in it. Then it's too cold, so you have to put it back on the stove. All of this comes down to an imbalance in the properties, sometimes good, sometimes bad, never coming to a stable state of normalcy at all, making us suffer in various ways. The third state of deprivation is the land of angry demons. Sometimes when we get ill or lose our senses, we run around naked without a stitch of clothing, as if we're possessed by angry demons. Some people have to undergo operations, getting this removed or cutting out that or sucking out this, waving their arms and moaning in a way that's really pitiful. Some people get so poor that they have nothing to eat. They get so thin that they're all eyeballs and ribs, suffering like the angry demons who can't see the brightness of the world. The fourth state of deprivation is purgatory. Purgatory is the home of the spirits with a lot of bad karma who have to suffer being roasted, speared with red-hot iron spikes, and pierced with thorns. All the animals whose flesh we've eaten, after they've been killed and cooked, gather together in our stomach and then disappear into our body in huge numbers. If you were to count them, you'd have whole coops of chickens, herds of cattle, and a half sea's worth of fish. Our stomach is such a tiny thing, and yet no matter how much you eat, you can never keep it full. And you have to feed it hot things too, like the denizens of purgatory who have to live with fire and flame. If there's no fire, they can't live, so there's a big copper frying pan for them. All the various spirits we've eaten gather in the big copper frying pan of our stomach, where they're consumed by the fires of digestion, and then they haunt us. Their powers penetrate throughout our flesh and blood, giving rise to passion, aversion, and delusion, making us squirm as if we were burned by the fires of purgatory too. So look at the body. Whose is it? Is it really yours? Where did it come from? No matter how much you care for it, it's not going to stay with you. It'll have to go back to where it came from, the properties of earth, water, fire, and wind. The fact that it's able to stay for a while depends entirely on the breath. When there's no more breath to it, it starts to decay, and no one wants it then. You won't be able to take it with you when you go. No one can take his arms, legs, feet, or hands along with him. This is why we say that the body is not self. It belongs to the world. As for the mind, it's the one that does good and evil, and will be reborn in line with its karma. The mind is what doesn't die. It's the one that experiences all pleasure and pain. So when you realize this, you should do as much good as you can for your own sake. The Buddha felt compassion for us and taught us in this way, but we don't feel much compassion for ourselves. We prefer to fill ourselves with suffering. When other people teach us, it's no match for our teaching ourselves, for other people will teach us only once in a while. The possibility of being a common animal, a human being, a heavenly being, or of reaching Nibbana all lie within us, so we have to choose which one we want. The good you do is what will go with you in the future. This is why the Buddha taught us to meditate, to contemplate the body, to give rise to dispassion. It's inconstant, stressful, and nothing of ours. You borrow it for a while, and then have to return it. The body doesn't belong to the mind, and the mind doesn't belong to the body. They're separate things that depend on each other. When we can see this, we have no more worries or attachments. We can let go of the body, and 3 hunks of rust, self-identity views, attachments to precepts and practices, and uncertainty in the path will fall from our heart. We'll see that all good and evil come from the heart. If the heart is pure, that's the highest good in the world. The good you do is what will go with you in the future. This is why the Buddha taught us to meditate, to contemplate the body, to give rise to dispassion. It's inconstant, stressful, and nothing of ours. You borrow it for a while and then have to return it. The body doesn't belong to the mind, and the mind doesn't belong to the body. They're separate things that depend on each other. When we can see this, we have no more worries or attachments. We can let go of the body and 3 hunks of rust, self-identity views, attachments to precepts and practices, and uncertainty in the path will fall from our heart. We'll see that all good and evil come from the heart. If the heart is pure, that's the highest good in the world. Someone once came to Ajaan with a problem. Some of his friends had said to him, "If the body's not self, why can't we hit you?" Ajaan said to answer them by saying, "Look, it's not mine. I've borrowed it, so I have to take good care of it. I can't let anyone else mistreat it.